Hi everyone, Claire Rattée here, Conservative candidate for Skeena-Bulkley Valley. I'm sorry it's been a little while since I've made a video. As I'm sure many of you can imagine, it's been a really crazy week, first week of the official campaign. So I just wanted to give a little bit of an update. I promise going forward I will try to make sure that I'm doing one a bit more regularly. So first of all, on my campaign specifically, I'm really happy to say that we have been doing really well. So far, so good. We've got an amazing team together. We've had people out on the doors every single day, people phone calling every single day, every community. It's been amazing. I really appreciate all the support that we've been finding, and I am so thankful to all of my volunteers. If you're interested in volunteering and helping out, whether it's door knocking, phone calling, lit drops, anything like that, please reach out to me or someone on my team. Obviously, we have a great group, but we could always use more help. So if there's anybody that has some time and would be able to help us out with that, it would be really appreciated. We've got our campaign office set up. Everything's going well. Signs will be here next week. So again, if anybody is interested in getting a sign, feel free to reach out to someone on the team, and we will make sure that we get you one when they get here. So more so on the federal side of things, I wanted to just talk a little bit about what we have seen so far this week, just kind of a brief overview of some of the policy proposals that have been put forward by our party. And I think one of the biggest ones is definitely the universal tax cut. So we're looking at a tax cut that would basically move the lowest income bracket from 15% down to 13.75, I believe. And essentially what this translates to is about $800 a year that you could save as a family, or around $400 to $450 a year for a single person. And that's obviously huge. That's a really big savings. Further, we've also got a number of tax credits that are being proposed right now by our party, focusing around families, especially families with young children. So looking at incentivizing families putting their children into sports activities to keep them healthy, to get them better socialized with other children. Sports and any kind of outdoor activities like that are really important and critical for young children, but unfortunately the cost of them is quite expensive. So I think that this is a really good tax incentive to help families put their children into those activities. There's also a secondary one that is aimed towards putting kids in arts or languages or music, basically any of those programs that have a cost that you will incur. And there's also an extra incentive on both of those programs. Any families that have children with disabilities will be eligible for an extra $500 on that tax credit. So I think that these are really, really important measures that should be put in place. I know that a lot of people that I've spoken to over the last few days at the doors have said that they're really excited about these. For the first time, we have kind of the millennial generation makes up the majority of the eligible voting bloc in this federal election, and a lot of them are having kids or have young children, and these are important measures to try and make life more affordable for you, and that's what we're working towards. That is our focus in this election. So I wanted to kind of address one of the things that I have seen a little bit online and heard from a few people, and that is, well, where are you going to find the money for this? How are you going to cut our taxes? How are you going to give us tax incentives without cutting services? And I think that it's a bit of I just disagree with the premise of it, because I think people don't really understand when they say those things that we're not looking at cutting any kind of services. We don't need to cut services to be able to lower taxes and to leave more money in your pocket. Basically, we would look at less revenues to the government, and when there's less revenues, all you have to do is try not increase your spending. So we'd be looking at trying to keep our levels of funding for things either at the same levels that they are currently, or just slight increases. I think it's pretty evident when you look at the books with the Trudeau Liberals over the last 4 years. They have made absolutely exponential raises in their budgets and how much money they're spending. They actually came close to being able to balance their budget last year. The first 11 months, they were on track to balance their budget, and then in the 12th month, they just started spending money like crazy. So I think that I know that it would be really easy to take a look at that budget and be able to figure out a way to maintain the same levels of service, increase where it's necessary. Obviously, there's things like healthcare that are always going to need to see increases as our population grows, but that doesn't mean that we have to cut services or cut funding for services by any means. There's easy ways to do it when you're fiscally responsible, and you actually care about spending the taxpayers' money efficiently and effectively. One of the other ways in which we are proposing to do that is by cutting corporate welfare. So we're looking at cutting corporate welfare. It was announced today by about $1.5 billion, and that's really not a difficult thing to do. And it won't affect the average Canadian in any way. So yes, absolutely, there are some places in which we will cut, and personally, I am okay with cutting those. When we look at things like the millions of dollars that were given by the federal government this year to Loblaws for new refrigerators, corporations like Loblaws don't need money for new refrigerators. That money could have been better spent in the pocket of each and every single one of us as Canadians, to help with costs for our families, to help buy groceries, to help with heating costs, anything like that. So it'll be an easy way to cut some of that money out of there and be able to leave more money in your pocket. Speaking of home heating, another one that I know a lot of people have known about for a while now that we propose, and people in my riding specifically are very excited about it, and that is removing the GST off of home heating bills. The amount of times over the last few years that I have heard from families that are struggling to be able to pay their bills, and one of the biggest things every single time is that their home heating bills, their home heating costs are too expensive. For many families, it's more than what they spend on rent or on their mortgage every month, and that's insane. I know I've personally been slapped with a few of those bills in the past, and it's difficult. You're not expecting it. They're in the thousands of dollars. This is one way, one measure that we're going to take to try and make sure that we can reduce those costs, so that people don't have to struggle to figure out whether or not they're going to pay for their heating bill this month or whether or not they're going to get groceries. We live in a country where that is unacceptable, and nobody should be faced with that decision. So this is just another one of the measures that we are going to take to try and prevent that from happening to people and to leave more money in everybody's pockets, because we believe that you know how to spend your money better than the government does. So that kind of goes over everything I wanted to mention for tonight. I will be doing another video within the next day or so here to talk a little bit about a specific project. So if anybody's interested, make sure that you follow me and get an update about that video when it comes out. And it has to do with the wildfires that happened in my riding last summer, and specifically over in Grassy Plains and that area on the south side of Burns Lake. So if anybody's familiar with what happened in those fires and you would like to give me your comments before I start filming that first video, feel free to reach out to me. But basically, I will be looking at going through kind of what happened and why the government didn't step up and do what they needed to do, neither the federal Liberal government or the provincial NDP government, and what measures we need to look at moving forward to prevent people from having to go through such horrific events again. If anybody hasn't gone over there and seen the damage from those wildfires, I would highly recommend that you do. I just went over there this weekend, and I mean, it's really heartbreaking to see houses that are having to be rebuilt still a year later and hear the stories of those residents. So that's something that I am putting a lot of focus and time into right now, and I will have that video out shortly. As always, thank you for watching, and feel free to share this around with family and friends, and I look forward to talking to you guys soon. Thanks.